I'm live. Hi, everybody. I'm live. Today. Today we move on. Yesterday, you worked on different types of agriculture. We talked about how important agriculture was for world food. 99.7% of our food in the entire world comes from the land, not the sea. So it's important that agriculture is taken seriously. There is a huge industry built on agriculture. There are colleges that are specifically for agriculture where you learn how to do this. It's an amazing thing that we need to keep going. We need to keep pushing the boundaries to make sure we can feed people. It's important. So we talked about monoculture and polyculture and how in the beginning of agriculture, mass agriculture at least, the biggest thing was the biggest challenge was to grow as much food as possible and not run the land and the soil out of nutrients, right? So they did a good job of learning how to do that. They did a good job of learning how to use the land the best they could. They shifted their crops, they rotated their crops, they mixed up their crops for biodiversity, right? So they did the things they knew how to do. With anything, as time goes on, we learn new ways to do things. We improve on what we've been doing. So they got to a point there where they were making food and they were rotating crops and keeping the soil as good as possible so they could go year after year and produce enough food for the populations, right? So now we are going to go to, and again, you're not watching me just blab, blab, blab. You have me on in the background. You have our slides up for today. So hopefully you are on those slides. I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to go through the slides. I'll tell you what slide number I'm on. You should be on that slide number as well. And I will talk, sort of break down the information on that slide in my usual way. All right. That is what we are working on. So let me begin. You should be on the tab. You should have the slides open. The slides are Unit 4, Lesson 3, What Impact Did the Green Revolution Have? All right, so that's the title of this presentation. As usual, we're skipping, you can look at the agenda real quick on slide 2. We're skipping the review because that's something that you can do on your own. So we have slide 3 as a review, slide 4 is a review, and then slide 5 brings us to the objectives. So after this lesson, after you dive into this, you should be able to explain the significance of the Green Revolution to land and water use. Okay. Slide 6. Should have been deleted. Sorry, forgot to delete slide 6. It's been in there. I couldn't take it out because I already posted the assignment. Disregard slide 6. Slide 7. All right. So what impact did the Green Revolution have? All right. So what the heck was the Green Revolution? I need to set this straight because sometimes nowadays when we hear green, we think Earth Day and recycling and environmentally friendly. And it sounds like the Green Revolution is something like, yeah, let's all recycle and save the planet. That's not what this is. That's before green took on that connotation. So in the 60s, right? Think of the Green Revolution more along the lines of the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, which I don't know much about, and hopefully Ivino doesn't watch this video. He subscribes, but I hope I get it right by saying the Industrial Revolution, railroads were built, right, to connect faraway places in the country, and assembly lines, right, Ford and assembly lines and cars. So when the assembly line was made, we could ramp up production of goods and we can get them out to people at better prices and stuff like that, right? So I think the Industrial Revolution, the idea of that, of how we used technology and innovation to impact and increase production of the things that we needed. Same thing with the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution was something in the 60s where scientists and farmers came together and found different ways, new ways to increase the yield, the amount of food that we can produce year after year. All right, so that's where your head is right now, and you'll understand it more when we get through this. So I'm on slide 7. What impact did it have? Well, during the 60s, new varieties of wheat and rice were developed. What that means, we are just talking about hybrid varieties that had higher yields and more resistant to diseases. So Farmer said, if I plant this wheat, it tends to grow really well. If I plant this wheat, it doesn't grow as well. So they say, I'm going to take the seeds from this wheat because it's a stronger plant and it's bigger and it's resistant to disease and it lasts longer and it produces more food. So they started to say, okay, well, that makes sense to take those seeds and replant them, right? And then they get more plant seeds and replant them, the strong seeds and replant them. So what they were doing over the beginning of the 60s, where they were deciding to take the stronger seeds and replant them and have these hybrid varieties. And what they found was they were growing more food in the same amount of time. And this food was stronger and bigger, resistant to any kind of pests and diseases. For instance, throughout the 60s, India experienced double the rice production, which is huge. Mexico experienced an 8-fold increase in wheat production, 8 times the amount that they were making within a certain 10 years or so. Right. So that's pretty amazing. So the Green Revolution was a time in history, in agricultural history, where farmers were being innovative and finding ways to increase their yield, increase how much food they can produce per year. All right, so I'm going to slide 8. Slide 8 has a graph, and this is just more proof of what was going on during the Green Revolution. All right, so during the Green Revolution, which they say starts in about 60, 61, and they have data all the way up till 2001, they see that there was a 200% increase in world grain production. Grain meaning wheats and rices and stuff like that, right? A 200% increase over that 40 years. That's huge. The main point here, though, is that amazingly it took place without increasing the area of farmland used. So that green line you see is the land that they had to use to produce this much food. It's not like we were clearing out more space and making more farms to grow more food. We weren't doing that. We were using the exact same amount of land, but we were finding new ways, innovative ways to plant, and we were making more food, a lot more food, as you can see, worldwide. All right, so that's what that slide talks about. Moving on to slide 9, we have the same slide, but you see the green across it saying this is what was referred to as the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution was the period of time where we started to grow more and more food on the same amount of land. So we found better ways to plant, better ways to get more yield out of our crops. All right, so that's what slide 9 talks about. Hey, what's up? So when you go to slide 10 is looking at something different. So naysayers would say, okay, well, you probably needed more land to grow that much more food. Well, the last slide, the graph showed you that wasn't true. We used the same amount of land to grow 100% more food. That's huge. So the other naysayers might say, oh, well, that just means, people are just eating less of it. That's why you have so much more of it. People are just eating less of it, which isn't true either, because the green line on slide 10 shows you the average grain per person. So the average amount of grains that each person eats per year or whatever. And you see that didn't increase very much. It may have increased a drop over 20 or over 40 years or 50 years, but that's only because population increased. So there would be more people eating it. So it just went up a very tiny bit. But then you see the blue line, which is the grain production. And the grain production went up that 200% in that time frame. So point is, innovation led to much more food. So we had a lot of food. Okay, that's what that slide said. For slide 11, it's a summary of those last 2 slides, which I just kind of gave you already. So the main point was, while production increased dramatically, so the food yield increased dramatically, the grain per person has only slightly increased. So it's not like we were eating less of it or eating more of it. We're eating the same amount, but we're making a ton more, which is really good. So other methods of increasing food production have also been used, but this new system that they figured out, like finding this and growing the best we can do, it took a lot of water and it takes a lot of nutrients, it takes a lot of fertilizer. So there are some limitations to it as far as it used up more resources than before the Green Revolution. So the Green Revolution started using up a little bit more resources as far as nutrients, fertilizers, and water. So right now, it's at their limit. They have done everything they can do, right? So farmers found the best way to get that done. And the way they did that is on slide 12. All right. So this is like a wrap up of the Green Revolution a little bit. On slide 12, it says the Green Revolution was achieved by natural plant breeding coupled with fertilizers and irrigation. What that means is it was a natural plant breeding. So this is how it works. This wheat grew really well and it stayed deep into the fall and it produced a lot and it was strong and resisted diseases, right? So farmers took the seeds from that wheat plant and regrew those seeds because even though it's all wheat, each seed has its own makeup of DNA in it, just like we're all humans, but we all have our DNA rearranged in different ways. Same with plants. So they were saying, all right, well, if we have short plants over here that aren't growing very well or are susceptible to disease, why would we take those seeds and replant them? Where in the past, they were just cutting everything down, gathering all the seeds and replanting them. But they got smart during this Green Revolution and they said, okay, let's just take the seeds with good DNA, with strong DNA, and replant it. So that's what they did over that 40 years or 20 years or so, and starting in the 60s. So they naturally bred the best seed. And you can see this in horse racing, right? When you have a champion horse, you breed it with another champion horse, and hopefully the DNA produces another champion, right? Same with purebred dogs. Purebred dogs are the same way. You take a purebred dog with their DNA, and you breed it with another purebred dog with their DNA, and hopefully the offspring is same thing in plants. Works the same way in plants. You take good seeds and you plant them, and hopefully that DNA produces the same good qualities as the rest. So that was the Green Revolution naturally, right? Because throughout this, me talking, you may be thinking about something else, which we're going to get to on the next slide. So naturally, natural plant breeding is what the Green Revolution was all about. And they coupled that with fertilizers and irrigation. So because they had these stronger seeds, they needed to make sure they were working. They needed to make sure that they increased the nitrogen and the phosphorus and the fertilizers, and they increased water supply. So it beats up the resources a little bit, but it's a great idea. Um, at this point, over these 40 years or over that 40 years, they got to their genetic limit, meaning they couldn't find any better seeds, right? They've bred out all the bad seeds, all the ones that weren't as good, and now they have a huge collection of just great seeds. There's nothing else they can do. There's nothing, they've gotten to a ceiling and they can't go past it naturally, right? But as you see on the last sentence on slide 12, today another route is being pursued, which is a little more controversial. And I think this may be what some of you may have already thought about. And if you go to the next slide, you will see the guided practice. In the guided practice, you have an activity, the Green Revolution's impact and GMO's potential impact. Okay. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, which I think many of you are familiar with. Um, Genetically modified organisms are science. That's science. That is taking a seed and going into its DNA and manipulating that DNA chemically so you can get more growth, so you can get other nutrients into that plant, so you can get that plant to grow shinier or taller or whatever it is, faster. So GMOs are scientists genetically modifying the DNA inside of a plant. All right. The Green Revolution was not that. So if you get anything out of this, I need you to understand the Green Revolution was natural breeding, doing it the best they can until they got to a point where you couldn't do anymore. You couldn't make it any better. But then when science steps in, now they start modifying the DNA and they start doing different things using chemicals, and that breaks the ceiling and that produces even more and even better food. Okay. There's obviously a lot of controversy over this practice. Some people say it's a good thing. Some people say it's a bad thing. There's research going both ways, right? We're going to let people starve, or we're going to use GMOs. Are we, are we going to just shove GMOs into our body, not knowing what they're going to do to us in 10 or 20 years? So there's a huge debate over what to do with GMOs. So when you move to slide 14, you'll see that in the speaker notes, there are 3 links. And this gets down to what you guys are going to be responsible for. So these 3 links link you to 3 articles, and the articles are about GMOs. So I don't, have an exit ticket for you up there, which is just a couple easy multiple choice questions as normal. The tons is like tons, like a ton of something, DeAndre. It's just like a ton of stuff. It's a unit of measure for food. That's all. So it's like a gross of this or 50,000 pounds of this. That's all. All right. So the 3 articles about GMOs, your job is going to be to read those 3 articles, is to become familiar. You don't have to stick to those 3 articles. You can look at YouTube if you'd rather watch YouTube videos on GMOs and stuff. But I want you to get a lot of pros and a lot of cons to GMO. Yeah, same thing. They just spell it funny. I want you to get a lot of information on GMOs, the pros and the cons. Because the next time we meet, this is period 5. So we will meet, not till Tuesday. All right. When we meet on Tuesday, I will have a writing assignment for you. So there won't be any new slides, but there'll be a writing assignment. And that will be a grade. And it will be about GMOs. So you can prepare for that by reading these articles and sort of getting aware of what's going on there. All right. What else do I want to say? The main point, I'm going to just slide back to slide 13 there, where it says the Green Revolution and GMO's potential. Just make sure you understand the difference. Make sure that the Green Revolution was natural and the GMOs is science poking their heads in with chemicals and with their ideas and technology, right? So there's a difference there. I look at it, and I've been using this as an example. I had a friend in high school who loved lifting weights, wanted to just, get jacked and blah, 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 blah. And he lifted and he lifted and he lifted and he lifted and he ate and he lifted and he ate and he lifted and he got really, he got shredded and he got big. And he got to a point where he just couldn't get any bigger, right? He was natural. He was naturally got to a point where his body's just not going to put on any more mass. And he wanted to be a bodybuilder, like a legit bodybuilder. And bodybuilders, unfortunately, go past that ceiling, right? So he took it as far as he could naturally. And that would be an analogy that would be equivalent to the Green Revolution. He took it as far as he could naturally, but then science stepped in. He took some steroids and chemicals and he broke that ceiling and he increased his muscle mass, right? Which can be very dangerous and controversial. So Green Revolution is that natural. GMOs is that breaking the ceiling, right? Now, that when you break the ceiling doing steroids, it definitely produces a larger human being, right? But you don't know the controversy in between. Same thing with GMOs. We know that GMOs produce better food, but we don't know about the controversy in between them. So that's where we're going. That's the idea of that. So understand that. If you have any questions, let me know. I have to go because I have a 6th period, which starts in a few minutes. But if you got something, private message me or, look at this again, see if it helps at all. I hope you guys are being safe. I hope you guys are staying calm and being smart. I know it's getting boring. I'm getting a little bored. But it is what it is. As long as you are signing in, as long as you are completing the work in all of your classes, nobody can tell us anything. When we come back, or if we even come back, no one can tell us we weren't doing anything. And there's plenty of stuff, plenty of proof, plenty of all that stuff, right? So make sure you guys are having a good time and trying to find ways to pass the time productively. And you have, it's kind of cool in your pajamas, sitting on your bed, in between Netflix binges. But anyway, I'll let you guys go. Get your work done. Let me know if you need anything. And the next time we meet won't be live, at least. I'm here every day. I'm here all day, every day, and maybe not so much on the weekends. So if you need something tomorrow, that's fine. If you need something Monday, that's fine. Just private message me. It has nothing to do with, it's not like I'm only here for you guys in this hour. That's not true. I'm here all the time. All right. See you later, Palagwachi. All right. So let me know. I'll be around. I'm here from 8 to 3 every day. So if you need something private, message me. Grades are going in, so check that out. See you later.